So this is a conversation that I want, like, we should have anyway, but it's just kind of, I've just worked it into this project that I have to finish for my last 2 weeks of grad school, so very exciting. But basically, as part of the program that I've been in, I've been looking at like ways in which we can improve our system, our structure, our process of special education. What I really care about a lot is increasing student involvement in that process. So looking at specifically in this case, like how we can move toward increased student involvement in the development of the IEPs and the IEP meetings, even to the point of having student-led IEPs. So I just wanted to kind of open a discussion about how we're using students now in our IEPs, like how you guys, if you like talk to them beforehand, I assume you talk to them before the IEP, but how you incorporate them, and where you feel like there's maybe a disconnect or a lack in what they understand about their IEP and the services that they get, versus what your ideal for them is, or what you envision is going to happen with the IEP. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or comments about that. Yeah,
I do. So I don't think we stop to think about that. So when I talk to a student, I tell them your IEP's coming up. We've done the IT plan, but I've never really sat and walked a student through their own IEP. They're getting it in the meeting, and that's a lot to take in. So
yeah,
that's something that I guess if they understand, like we try, I can explain why you have an IEP, and if they can explain it to me, sometimes they can't.
yeah.
If they can't explain why they have auditory processing, or why they, so I think a conference before that would be really, really good.
What I do, because I think it's important, obviously for our students, we have to
Sure.
simplify, and I'm just doing that as part of my project this year,
Sorry,
because
I didn't know
I reviews every 2 years. My students are really cognitively challenged, so I have their profile sheet, and at the bottom of the profile sheet, I have a summary of all of their goals, and they're very simplified. And then I talk to them about it. I'm actually talking to them about it, and I created a little chart for them where a stepping ladder, are you achieving your goals? And I have this ladder thing, and I can share it with you guys, what I did, like an example of, can I share an example of one student, because we're all.
Yeah, because I really think
Yeah.
that we don't really go over profile sheets
Yeah.
with our kids either.
Yeah, so, and I'm doing it in piecemeal, and granted, some of the students are gonna get it and some of them not, and I talked to Paul about that, I said, I'm gonna try this, because I feel like if they know what's going on more, are they going to engage more, and are they gonna try harder when they see the stepping ladder and me filling it out, coloring in each time they get to 20% or 40%, and then we kind of talk about how they're achieving it and what we're working on to get there. So it is a lot of work initially just to set it up, but once you set it up, it works out good, and then it creates summaries for me that I can put in their 6-month review kind of thing when we send those things out. So I actually decided to do that already with my students, to say I want to make them more of the IEP. I would love it if they could do a kind of presentation saying I worked on this and this,
Yeah.
and it's part of the IEP, so it makes it a little bit more engaging and interesting with the parents. And they kind of get it, and then their student is showing to be more involved.
Yeah.
So I can share that with like one example and share it with everybody.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Now, Julia, I would call that Julia, so my question to you is, when you say student involvement in the IEP, were we thinking about goals as well?
Yeah, I mean everything, the whole process, right? Like ideally, I think if a student can articulate not only their needs and what their disability entails, but also things that they need to work on, how that affects their classes, what accommodations and modifications they need to be successful. I mean, that's all things that we have to go through, and we don't know them as well as they know themselves, So how can we kind of bridge that divide and make that better? But,
So owning their learning.
yeah, totally.
I've been so I try to check in with them right before their meeting, usually a day or two before. I'll call them into study hall, or if they're my workshop class, will take time to meet with them, kind of just a one-on-one conference for about 15 minutes. And what I'm noticing is when I'm talking to them about how they're doing in their classes, where their grades are, where their goals are at, and what their accommodations are, they don't even know what their accommodations are. Like there's a disconnect. They're like, I can do that. And so I think that I'm trying to build with them what this means for them. That like they don't even realize, they're just like, oh yeah, I have to do this meeting. I'm like, and then I always get, do I have to be there? Right? There's a lot of like, I don't want to be there. Do I have to be there?
Yeah.
And I think think it's because there's a cloud of haze for them on the fact that this is really about them and that this is for their benefit. And so I'm trying to build that in with them. I'm noticing though that there is a big question mark over a lot of their heads. So I think what you're talking about would be a really good thing. It also would help us, I think, as case managers be more prepared for the meeting on how to break, if the kids don't get it, the parents probably don't get it either.
Yeah.
So it helps us to break it down for the parent in the meeting too. I really like your idea.
Just mine's just a piece of it and more simplified, and it is, I can't get into the layers as much as you can, but I will with varying levels of the students, you can get into it a little bit more with the things that you
Depending on
talked
the
about,
student.
yeah. Yes.
Lisa, did you want to say
I wanted to say that I love your idea, because I see lots of anxiety,
Prior
in
to
the
it.
week or two up to it,
Yeah.
and a lot of the students feel like I'm gonna get yelled at, or
Like
they're
a
gonna
parent,
be
I'm
in
meeting with
trouble.
my parent, you're not in trouble, we always say,
Oh, yeah,
"Look,
you're not
why
in
give me
trouble."
that look on your face, yeah.
So what I do
I-
besides just meeting with the kids, the ones that are super anxious or, you know, what is gonna be said, I go through everything with them. You know, they sit with me at my computer, I print up, I either show them, like, I do a separate present levels, before I put it in, all on a doc, just for my own learning and like presentation style, cause I don't like the way that it's presented in the IEP. Cyrus is really small and busy, right?
Yeah.
So, I show them where it's in the IEP and we go over, you know, I mean, we talk about their goals and their accommodations, and where they're at, what they want, but it really is the kids who are more involved, yes, they're anxious, but they're also a little bit more mature.
Yeah.
And then doing that with them, it gives opportunity not just for their input, but to be able to in the meeting then easily incorporate them in and, you know, check for understanding with the kid and give them opportunity to speak about where they're at and how they're feeling.
Yeah.
I
think it
not
also,
every single student
No,
is able to
Yeah.
do that, but it does definitely bring down a little bit of the anxiety.
Sure.
and it helps build that relationship with the student, because you know, we've had some different people coming through in the last couple of years where they need to know you're an advocate for them. And if they know there's gonna be a bad report, they need to know how we're gonna support them on, these are how we're gonna proceed
Right.
forward, but we have to talk about what you're not doing, and then we'll talk about solutions, so it'll get us all on the same page, so your parent is realizing you're working towards it.
Right.
So, and that's really important because that's
No,
really
it's
important.
very helpful, and, you know, a lot of, like, most kids are, they're worried that they're gonna get in trouble, something bad's gonna come out of the meeting, even when I've had, like, I have a senior, I've had, you know, them for 4 years, and they've never had a bad, you know, IEP meeting,
Yeah.
it's just, you know, their lifelong experience that these are bad and scary, you know, parent-teacher meetings.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful, and then you can help support them in the meeting too, right? Well, you know, I don't know if I don't wanna be there, you know, yes, I want you to present this for me, and then I could check with them, but no, you have to be there, you're in high school, what can we do, you know, they get a fidget, okay, well, you got your fidget, it's not working, here's a place in the classroom you can go. I mean, there's different things you can set up for the kids who are super, like, resistant
Yeah.
and anxious, but it also helps them to prepare for that meeting.
I think also for those students who have been in special ed for almost all of their educational careers, which many of our students have, up to this point, up to before high school, you know, a lot of times they weren't invited. And so
Yeah.
all of a sudden now they are invited and they don't know what it's about and they don't know why they're there or really what they're getting. I mean, they know they're different, right? That's all they know. They know they're different and it's bad. But they don't know like what the nuances of that are. And I've run into several times over the course of teaching like students who don't like understand even at all like what my role in their life is in their education is. Like they don't get like why I have to be there or why I'm involved.
She's the lady who just helps me.
Yeah. Yeah, or
Way to go,
in
sorry,
their
Ben.
class or whatever, you know. And so it's or they come to see me and it's but I think that they should know. I think that they should know because it's
Yeah.
like kind of I think it's kind of a rights thing as well.
And I think it starts too at articulations, just so you know, when sometimes it's the first time they're in a room full of all adults picking their classes for next year, going over accommodations, which I don't think prior to that they were ever invited to a meeting. And, you know, that's, I think, for them that's overwhelming, because sometimes we excuse some of them out of it because it's overwhelming. So it's maybe something to discuss with the middle schools before articulations. Hey, can you help us out by telling them what the meeting's all about, instead of like, here's people from the high school, pick your classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause we're scared from the get-go, especially, you know, cause I'm at the table.
Right.
I guess I'm not. But, how do you, okay, these are great ideas. How do we implement it? How do we?
Yeah, I think it has to start with being really intentional about scheduling IEPs and inviting students in to actually go through things.
Checklist thing, huh?
Yeah.
Open boxes.
I mean, I know that like we all know this, but we have too many students on our caseloads.
Yes.
Like I know that we are all really aware of that,
That's where.
but we actually have way too many students, like way more than we should. And so I think like that's been, at least for me coming into this my first year here, like I had like 20 IEPs this semester. So how am I supposed to meet one-on-one with all of those students multiple times a week, let alone a month? You know, it's nearly impossible. In fact, many times it is impossible. So I personally, I think next semester I'm going to like schedule more frequent times to sit down with those students and talk to them. But what I did try to do is similar to what Liza has done, and schedule like have them come to my study hall once a week, or not once a week, but before the IEP meeting, and go through like as much as the IEP as they're going to need to be part of.
And sometimes even when you have a class period with them too, like if I'm not doing direct instruction, like if they're in history, I'll just pull them.
Yeah.
Because trying not to pull them out of their other classes, but also still trying to just have at least a few minutes to discuss it so that there's less fear and anxiety when they go in.
Yeah.
It's very hard. I know that my old school, at the beginning of the year, within the first, I think, 10 days, I believe is what they did, there was the Google Calendar. We had to have even if we have to, I mean, it shifts, right? Parents reject a date or a time, but if we get it on there within the first 10 days, that means everybody knows kind of where we're looking, and it made it a lot less difficult when some of those switches had to be made. And it also gave us basically a baseline. This is how we start. We would also, but we'd have a checklist that we would do for the IEP, like these are the pieces we did. And if we did our pre-conference with the student, that would be a checkbox, so that we have like a sheet that we get attached to the IEP itself, just for our department use, so that we would know, okay, I hit A, B through G and F. Everything's been done, and that way we had a way to reference it, and it was written down, so that if we ended up in hearing, it would demonstrate like this is what was done and when.